Davis. I'm the program director at Urban Impact, the community economic development agency that serves the historic 4th Avenue Business District and the Birmingham Civil Rights National Monument District. We have esteemed panelists today. To my left, Mr. Greg Gratton of Green Acres Cafe, the legendary, and to my right, Ms. Ernestine Poole of Poole Funeral Chapel. Tonight we'll talk about the beauty of our district, which is its legacy businesses. We're so excited to be able to bring this panel to you in the historic 4th Avenue Business District because it is Black History Month and because our Black history is every day. We first want to thank our sponsor, the Alabama Humanities Alliance, for giving us this opportunity to share these important stories for culture, arts, and commerce in the historic 4th Avenue Business District. We're also thankful to our gracious host, PEPS, Prodigy Events and Promotion Services, a new business in the district, for hosting this great conversation. We're also grateful to the 4th Avenue Forward Action Team, our Main Street Revitalization Team for the historic Black Business District. We're so excited for this conversation that will take place over the course of about an hour, and we'll really today dig deep into the personal story, the personal fabric, and the beauty of these great legacy businesses. So first, I'll just do a little, ask everyone to briefly introduce themselves, their businesses, and what they do. Ms. Poole, you can start first.
My name is Ernestine Poole, and I am from Poole's Funeral Chapel. Poole's Funeral Chapel was established in 1936 here in Birmingham.
Thank you so much. Mr. Greg?
Good evening. My name is Greg Gratton. I'm the owner of Green Acres Cafe downtown, and my father started that business back in 1958, and I took the Rams in 1993.
Thank you so much. The historic 4th Avenue Business District is the historic Black business district and epicenter in Birmingham. According to many reports, Birmingham History Center, over 30% of the African American businesses were concentrated for about 30 years in the center, and even today we have 30 Black business owners, 55 Black business owners, 30 property owners in City Center. We're one of the only remaining places that has Black people, architecture, and businesses still intact from the early 20th century. And today we'll learn a little bit about the people that make that go. So the first question, I really want to learn about both of you all's stories, right? And we'll talk about the business, we'll talk about the legacy and some of the flashpoints and the hidden facts, but I want to know about you as a person. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, where you went to school, your first job, and how you came into to doing what you do. Ms. Poole?
Okay, I grew up in Smithfield. I attended Parker High School in Birmingham. I went away after finishing high school to college, and I went to the University of Alabama. At that time, I think it had been integrated for maybe 2.5 years or so. So that was an experience that I can never forget, and I'm still somewhat bitter about some of the things that happened to me during that time. But after I finished the University of Alabama, I sort of wanted to, leave the state. And I left Alabama and went to New York City, went to school at NYU, and was in New York for 15 years before I got married. Then I moved to Pennsylvania and stayed there until I returned to Birmingham in 1999, I believe it was. So in 1999, I started working at the funeral home, and I've been there ever since.
Wow, thank you. We're going to come back to portions of that. Mr. Gratton?
Okay, born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama. My neighborhood was Norwood, and I went to Our Lady of Fatima School on the south side. And from there, we went to Immaculata High School. And from there, we went to Phillips High School the first year that it was integrated. And that was a life-changing experience, let me tell you. It was only 4 blacks in the school, the entire school, Phillips High School. And I could only stomach it for 1 year. So the next year I left and went to Parker High School, and I attended there. And when I finished, I left and went to Chicago. I spent a couple of years in Chicago, came back home, and I was basically brought up in the family business because when we left school over on the south side, we either caught the bus straight down 18th Street to 6th Avenue and then walked across to 16th Street. And when we got there, our daily assignment was to peel the potatoes, prep the chicken wings, and get the business ready for the next morning. So that was my brother and my assignment each and every day. And then on Saturdays, we did the same thing. So after a while, I think I left here in '74, and I went to California. And my family and I was in California for 19 years, and I came back here in '93. And when I came back in '93, my father was very busy trying to buy a franchise. He was interested in a Crystal franchise or either a Burger King franchise. So, me being a young buck that I was, I said, Daddy, why are you interested in somebody else's franchise when you got your own franchise that you're sitting on right here? So he said, well, son, I don't know anything about franchising. I told him, I said, well, I don't either, but I'll give it a shot. So I started going to the Birmingham Public Library, where I started doing research on franchises. And I got a rough draft together, and I sent it over to the law office. It's called Sisio. And they put me together a package of a franchise agreement. And we sold our first franchise in 1994. So it took about a year for me to do what I needed to do to execute the plan. And after that, about a year of 2000, I had 10 franchise Green Acres throughout the city of Birmingham. So it was very good and exciting, and I just stuck to what I knew, and I made something into nothing.
Wow, that's a great story from both of y'all. So I want to ask a question. So what was it like? Sort of, number one, y'all both have a Parker connection, but what was it like being a young person, in Birmingham? Is Birmingham, how different is Birmingham today than it was when you were going to Parker?
Birmingham is very different now. In fact, I can't find my way around as much as I probably should be able to, because when I grew up in Birmingham, there were very few areas where black people lived. It was not like now when black people live all over Birmingham. So the areas where people live now, I don't know how to navigate to them because I never went to those places when I was growing up. So people laugh at me when I say that I can't find my way places, and generally someone will drive me where I need to go because I don't know how to get around in Birmingham even now, and I've been here 20 years.
Wow, that makes sense, though. Mr. Grattan?
Well, Birmingham today and Birmingham back in the late 50s and early 60s is like night and day. And, I can tell you some stories where when my brother and I finished our assignments downtown, we had to walk from downtown to Norwood. So you had to venture through a couple of white neighborhoods to get to Norwood. and a lot of times we got ran home.
Yep.
So, Birmingham nowadays has did a 360-degree turn in a positive area, and especially the Fourth Avenue district. Now, I remember the Fourth Avenue district back in the 59 and 1960, because from 16th Street and 6th Avenue North, we used to walk across the park, Lynn Park. We used to walk across there and venture into the Fourth Avenue district area, but we was being bad boys then because we wasn't supposed to come over there.
Yep.
So we would come over, and that time you could get in the movies, for some bottled drink tops, and it was just exciting because we would come over and we would just be misters as little young teenagers would be, and we would get into everything. And when we got back, father and mother had a lesson for us and a conversation for us. But speaking about downtown in the early 60s and downtown in 2022 is a big, tremendous eye-opening for those that was brought up back during that time.
Thank you. So you mentioned a little bit about it. Were you all participants at all in the Children's March and some of the stuff that was going on, some of the movement that was happening in 62, 63, 64?
I was. I participated in the marches trying to think, it might have been 62 or maybe 63. I can't remember right now. I have to think about it. But I was arrested. I'll never forget the day that it happened. It was right at 16th Street Baptist Church, and I was in the second group to be arrested that day. The first group had already left, and they were on their way to juvenile. But by the time I was arrested, they were taking people to jail on the buses because the paddy wagons, had been filled up, and there were so many people that they had to transport us in city buses. And I can remember that very vividly. I think I was about 14, and I got arrested right at the corner of 16th Street and 7th Avenue, which was a block from 16th Street Baptist Church and a block from the church where I attended. So I can remember going into the church and getting my instructions from Reverend Jesse Jackson and some of the other people who were there. And once I got my instructions, it was time to join the march. And we got, I think, maybe one block before we were arrested. We got to the corner of 16th Street and 7th Avenue. And we were arrested there and transported first to the juvenile center, and then I was taken to the county jail, which is now the city jail.
Thank you. Well, you brought up some really good things, and I want to go back to some of those because both of your businesses also had a role in the sort of children's crusade. But first I want to talk about how your businesses came into being. As legacy businesses, we typically define that as businesses lasting, 2 generations or more. In fact, the Kauffman Foundation says less than 15% of family-owned businesses make it to the next generation. In the 4th Avenue Business District in Birmingham, we have this fantastic cluster. We have like 15 families that have been here 2 or more generations, and going into 3 and 4 in some. So, Mr. Grattan, could you tell me the story of how Green Acres Chicken came to be in Cafe?
Okay, the name Green Acres, where it came from, I really don't know, but my daddy's brother started Green Acres Legacy in 1946 in Chicago, Illinois. He had about 5 businesses there, and my father's oldest brother, he adapted to the Green Acres philosophy in 1950, and that's when the first Green Acres in Birmingham came about, 1950, in North Birmingham, 29th Avenue and 28th Street. And then my father, he got the idea. He was working for Coca-Cola at the time, and he saved up his money, and he opened up the Green Acres in 1958 on 16th Street and 6th Avenue South. And in fact, we was in business operating at the time when the 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed. So Green Acres, I just celebrated our 60-year anniversary at the Boutwell, and we had a big throwdown, carved statues and just the whole gamut. And that's where it started in 1946 in Chicago, Illinois.
Wow. Ms. Poole?
Poole's Funeral Chapel, the Pooles started the business in 1936. They had worked at another funeral home prior to that, and I don't know for how long, but at some point they decided that they would go out on their own, and that was in 1936. Previously, they had all worked in the coal mines. My grandfather was a coal miner. And they actually came from Montgomery to Birmingham because of more job opportunities in Birmingham. At the time, Birmingham was expanding rapidly, and there were many jobs, and people came from everywhere to work in Birmingham. So my grandfather moved his family, and I think my father was maybe about maybe 5 years old, or somewhere around there, and they moved to the Birmingham area. And after being here for a while, a few years, my grandfather got a job in the coal mines, and at that time, it was so dangerous that he worked in the coal mines for a year before my grandmother even knew he worked in the coal mines. He paid somebody to let him bathe at their house before he came home so she wouldn't know, because it was such a dangerous job at that time. And once they worked in the coal mines for a while, my grandfather always had a dream of being an undertaker. And by the time they set up business, my uncle and my father were adults. And he convinced them to come into the business with him. They were young adults. I guess they were in their early 20s. And they decided they would go into the funeral business. Before that, they had a moving company, and they delivered coal, but they were always industrious and always looking to do something else. So when they got into the funeral business, I think I mentioned that they had worked with another funeral home for a few years before they started their business. And then the business was off and running in 1936.
Wow, I think both of you, your family businesses have a similar history around starting in the neighborhood and then moving to the Black Business District. Could you all briefly, talk about your first memories of the Black Business District, 4th Avenue, what it was like?
Well, I can remember the 4th Avenue Business District very vividly because, like I said, we would sneak over here all the time, and it was um, it was really exciting because that was the only place where blacks could go and shop. It was like the black downtown. You know, you had your Copeland Corner, you had your JC's, all those places where we came and got our clothes, our suits, jewelry. They had pawn shops all the way down there, and that's just where we went and gathered. We dare not try to go down to Newberry's or Blacks or none of those other department stores because it was just forbidden, you know. But growing up and just experiencing the Fourth Avenue Business District, it's a lot better than what it was because back then it was a lot of pimps, a lot of prostitutes, and a lot of just unruly activity going on. That's why our parents did not want us to venture in that area. But we got over there and we experienced a lot of stuff that we shouldn't have did, but you know, we was teenagers and young teenagers, and we just enjoyed getting into stuff. So that's about it.
The Black Business District, or Fourth Avenue, as we all knew it when I was growing up, was sort of forbidden to young teenagers. A lot of probably illegal activities went on there, you know, and young children did not go there. But it was a thriving area. There were businesses, and they were all owned by black people. I remember one of our neighbors, because we lived down here in this area on 13th Street. Our neighbor was a plumber, and I think he had probably around 4 or 5 trucks that did plumbing for people over the mountain and everywhere. You had all kinds of businesses. Whatever we had, we generally got it from, black businesses. And you had, there was a lot of money exchanged and a lot of money made there. People did well. I don't think, you had masons, you had all kinds of businesses, and people were employed, I'll put it that way, in businesses.
That's so interesting that you all both said that this vibrancy, this sort of at the same token adult activities, but there's the sense of ownership and employment. Your businesses have really unique contributions to the Birmingham Civil Rights Movement, you know, particularly the Children's Crusade. Could you speak to Children's Crusade and just the civil rights struggle? So, Mr. Gratton, could you speak to how, first of all, tell us about who your father, was, why he was important, and then how he contributed to the movement?
Well, my father, bless his soul, he was very into the civil rights movement. In fact, from what I heard, he was tight with Abraham Woods, Gavin Woods, and Shuttlesworth and Abernathy. And, since he was a black person and he had a business, he was kind of used as a planner to plan where they would meet. Shuttlesworth, Abernathy, and then whenever King came in town, he was the one who would plan the best place for them to meet and to gather. And so after we got out of that era, and we came across the park, and we opened up a business on 4th Avenue on the other side of the street. The federal government has got that property now. But back in the 80s, when Urban Impact was really formed through Birmingham's first black mayor, Richard Arrington, he was a strategic person who helped Urban Impact get off on the ground with Mr. Hicks, Mr. Willie Etheridge, Blankenship. It's just a whole number of the prominent black people that had businesses in that area and had some money, and they formed the 4th Avenue Merchants Association along with Urban Impact. And I think Urban Impact is into about 42 years of being in existence now. And when I came back home, I made sure that I got involved with it so that I could keep the legacy going. And you know, because nowadays, if people don't take interest in older stuff, then it fades away. So I didn't want Urban Impact and 4th Avenue Merchants Association to dissolve. So that's about it. Thank you.
Ms. Poole, so you have the funeral chapel played a very dramatic chapter that a lot of people do not know. And to me, when I learned about it, it was probably the highlight of my year. So could you just take a little bit of time and describe that chapter?
You mean when they hid the, okay. There was he was a minister, but he was also a funeral director. And my parents and my grandfather and all, they knew him. At that time, everything was segregated. Even the funeral business was very much segregated. And so at the funeral home, they also ran ambulance service, because there was no way for black people to get to the hospital if they were injured or if they were just going to be sick. So they had an ambulance service, and the other funeral homes, many of the other funeral homes had them as well. And his name escapes me now as well as I know it. Mr. Weaver he was also a minister, a funeral director. Went to integrate the bus station along with Dr. Shuttlesworth and Dr. Shuttlesworth's wife. And while they were waiting, I think Reverend Weaver went in to meet them or something. They were friends. And he was mobbed by a bunch of white gentlemen and beaten. And he was run throughout the town. And somehow, I think he ended up at my grandmother's house. I don't know. I don't remember the story that well. But he ended up at my grandmother's house, and my father and his brother knew that they had to move him from there to keep them out of danger. So he ended up at the funeral home. And in the meantime, a mob of white Klansmen and some others were looking for him to mob him. When he ran to my grandmother's house, I believe my uncle and my father got him out, brought him to the funeral home, and they hid him there for 2 or 3 days until they could move him out of the city. And I think he left here and went to Washington, D.C. to testify uh, in Washington, D.C. for the first civil rights bill or something like that. But he was hidden for about 3 days there. And I think he said, you know, he used to like to tell that they hid him in a casket when some of the whites came in looking for him or something. But I don't know if that's the case, but he always said it. And actually, we buried him probably about maybe 4 years ago. He lived until then.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an amazing story. And you too, Mr. Grattan. You know, a lot of us know about the Rosa Parks and MLK, but we don't know about just the community of business owners and the level of planning and the community connectedness. You've got Mr. Charles Grattan, who is planning and providing shelter for kids as they're coming in and financing some stuff. You've got the Poole family hiding and doing strategic work. All of that is super important. I think the other thing too is that you are both rooted in neighborhoods that we are, you know, still serving today. We're in Fountain Heights. You grew up in Norwood, North Side, Smithfield, and it all comes together in that way. So we want to sort of pivot from the past and talk a little bit about today. You all are business owners. So what are some of the distinctives that make your business stand out and great? You know, what is the Poole legacy? What's the Grattan legacy? You know. So, all right, so I'll just be real with you. What makes your fried chicken the best fried chicken in Birmingham?
Well, my father told me to never give that secret up. He just said to keep fixing it like I showed you how to fix it. But the secret to the longevity of our business is to concentrate basically on the business. Like my father said, keep it simple as possible. And, you know, a lot of people would come in and say, well, you know, why you don't have macaroni and cheese? Why you don't have collard greens? Well, you can get macaroni and cheese and collard greens around the corner. My specialty is wings, and that's what we do. And, you know, if you take pride in your business will blossom and your customers will be faithful. Now, sometimes when I come up in the front of the establishment, I meet some customers that have been coming in, and they 50 years old, and they got their daughters and sons with them, and they said, this is what I was brought up on, and you see, they're eating it too. And then that generation bring their kids and get their kids started. So it's a wonderful thing to see loyalty from customers. And that loyalty is from receiving a good product and smiles from your employees.
Okay, I guess longevity is something we can be proud of. We've been around for a long time, and we still service a number of the people that we serviced years ago. It's a generational business. And we always say that we serve to serve again. We do a lot of repeat business. If people have come to us once, generally they will return. The unfortunate thing, and I guess it's not unfortunate, is that there are so many other funeral homes in Birmingham now that a number of the people who knew us, you know, have died out. So we're not as well known to the younger generation as we are to some of the older people. And I guess we really have to work on that. I have a nephew who's interested in funeral service now, so perhaps the legacy will live on. I'm praying that it will.
Well, I think you raise a great point about the legacy living on. And here's where I want to talk a little bit about the future and some of the present today. You know, what are your thoughts? You all have seen a lot, overcome a lot, trailed the blade, blazed the trail for us and me. What are your thoughts about racial and economic progress, today?
The racial and economics today, it's very good, and then there's a downside to it too. Um, I really don't want to get into the political side of it, but um, the nation as a whole was moving along greatly, getting along greatly until our last president that we had came in and started interjecting that hate and that cruelty again. So, you know, if you if anybody did not realize what he was doing, then they was under a rock, because this man was trying to infest the same thing that we done worked hard to get out of. He was trying to bring it back. So, you know, I can say kudos to all of those who stand firm and help to get him out of office, because we was going to wind up being a country like Russia with a dictator. Because he already said he wanted more than 8 years being the president. So good gracious, he only did 4. So ain't no telling where we'd have been at if he was still been in there. But, you know, I want to leave that alone, and I just want to say that I think this world is going in the right direction, because we still love it on each other, we still helping each other, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to survive. And you got to put God first. If you don't have God in your life, you're a lost cause, because he is the only one, and he can bring you through where you think you could never be. So that's all I have to say on that. I'm sorry for getting cranked up on our former president, but I think he was due that acknowledgement.
Well, I tend to think that we are so polarized now. There's no room for, there's little room for differences among people. When I came back to Birmingham, I often remark that, where I live and where I work, I probably don't see white people for 2 weeks at a time. When I came from a place where I saw different cultures and different kinds of people, so I miss that mix of people, and that's something that we don't have in Birmingham. And I don't know, I'm real pessimistic about it. I don't know that we'll ever have it. Groups tend to stay among themselves, and especially so here. And I think it's unfortunate that we're not exposed to differences in people, and so that makes us less accepting of people who don't look like us. So I see, how someone like the former president could appear in society, because we're so polarized. We look to our own, it's a different day. And I saw something different when I was young, a teenager, and when I was, marching for voting rights and for other rights. I thought the world would be much better, and that any children I had would have more opportunities. But I don't see that now, and
No, thank you.
disappointing.
That's a weighted perspective from both of you, and it certainly seems and looks that way in many respects. One of the things that as before we get into our last round of questions further into the future, it's just so important to celebrate both of you and your families for making so much progress. And I am, just sometimes I have a job, but then sometimes I'm like, this is just really cool, right? That I get to just interact with families um, and the movement in Alabama. So here's what I'll say. If you have a few questions online, in the comments, we want to know about them. We'll take maybe one or two questions from the audience, put it in the chat, and Jay Bryant, our communications coordinator, and Ashley Menora, our district development coordinator, will assist in bringing those two questions to the forefront. So this is the time to do it as we ask and listen to this question. So we've talked about the future. I want to get a little bit more specific. What do you, when you think about the legacy of your business, right? Do you see that continuing? How are you excited about its continuation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm very proud of Green Acres. I'm proud of my family, and I have no doubt that it will continue on into the future because my middle daughter right now, she's pioneering the store during this COVID situation. Um, Elijah can tell you he had to pry me out to this event because I'm just not moving around like other people are. And it's simply because you don't know what you're moving around. This COVID, you can't see it. You don't know where it's at. You can't avoid it. So my best and my safest suggestion that my wife made for me was, baby, stay at home. You know you're safe at home. You know there ain't no booger bears in our house. But when you go out there, ain't no telling what you gonna run into. So I stay at home. I got plenty of things that I could do around the house. I keep myself busy, and I communicate with Urban Impact them virtually. And when Elijah said, "Well, come on, let's have this live forum," like I started trembling, like, oh, he invited me to the Booger Bears. But my wife, she and I, we prayed up before I left the house, and I'm gonna be good. But the future of Green Acres, I see it way into 2030 and beyond.
And I will be getting the breakfast at that time too. You used to talk about the chicken at breakfast is pretty good too. What about you, Miss Poole?
Well, I'm prayerful that we will continue, although the funeral business is changing now. You have more people interested in becoming funeral providers. You have less of a market than we probably had at one time, but you have more businesses around the city. So I pray that things will continue, and I believe they will. Not on the scale that it once did, but I think that that it will continue. I pray that it will in any event.
No, thank you. So we're moving to the conclusion of this really great conversation. So we want to give an opportunity for the audience to ask and pose some questions. So Jay and Ashley, what are some questions from the audience? That's a great question. You all both can answer.
What we need to do is we need to be more attentive of our own kind. We need to love on each other. We need to stick together. Let's stop being crabs in a barrel. So if you don't know what a crab in a barrel is when one crab get to the top to get out of the barrel, the other crab pull him back down in there. So you're not going anywhere. So let's push ourselves out and support each other. And that's the only way that we're going to get the black businesses to strive, get involved, assist them. You got to be active to make anything work. So what I will say is support your black-owned businesses.
Ms. Poole?
I think one way we can probably be more successful is to pool our resources. I find it, I kind of hate to bring this up, but it's just difficult for black businesses to get financing and resources, and it has always been that way. I can remember as a child, my grandfather and father having to borrow money from banks, black banks in Atlanta and other places. We need to, I guess, pool our resources, help each other, and live.
Oh, that's great. We'll take one more question from the audience. Jay?
The first thing I would say, and the most important thing that I could say to both of those questions is put God first. And if you put God first, then he can direct your path the right way. And if you love your business and love what you do, then other people will love it also. But you have to let yourself shine. And my father told me a long time ago, he said, son, if you want to attract customers, get you some bright lights. Put some bright lights in front of your store, because when a person sees bright lights, first thing they're going to do is say, what that bright light is attached to? And they're going to see your business. And they're going to say, well, let's go see what's behind these bright lights. So just ring your own bell, let your light shine, and first and foremost, put God first.
Excellent. Ms. Poole?
Well, I've forgotten what the question was. Forgive me. All I know is hard work. Our business has always been a business where you had to work hard. In fact, and I probably should not share this, my father did not want his children in the funeral business because of the hard work associated with it. And basically, your time is not your own. You have to be available to the public 24 hours a day. So you can never plan far enough in advance in order to, even attend family functions or holiday things. I always laugh because every holiday I can look forward to something happening to interrupt, festivities for me, but because I like what I do. And I actually feel that this business is a calling. Not everyone can do it. Uh, you're called to do it, I believe, because I never thought I would be doing this. In fact, I was away from here. I was 50 years old when I came back to Birmingham. Yeah. And I never thought I'd be in the funeral business. But I think I've been called to it. And I like it. I like the people that I deal with every day. And I think that in order to be successful, you really have to put others first. Um, well, put God first and then put others after that.
No, that is great. And what I hear from both of you all, the why for your business, why you want to do your business is people. At different phases of your life, making them happy, making them joyful, and making them, soothe and calm. We've got one more question from the audience, and we'll take it now, and then we'll wrap up in a second.
Examples for others. It teaches our children that if you work hard and you apply yourself, that you can do what someone else has done. And I think it also encourages people to do better. Uh, I think that, well, when I was growing up, most black people would encourage youth because they wanted you to be better or have a better life than they had. And so the whole community came together, to raise the child. And I think that we're going to have to revert back to that in order to be successful as a people in the future.
Well, my comment on that is I'm going to have to revert back to my father. My father was a very wise man, and if you listen to him, you'll get somewhere. Now, he said in his interview with Duke University, and that's a powerful interview that he did. And one of his things that he said, what we as a race, black people, we always tell our kids, go to school, get your education so you can be something. Well, my father said we shouldn't be telling our kids that. Okay, so I know a bunch of y'all saying, well, what did your father say we should do? Tell your kids to go to school, learn all they can learn to be the best at what they can do, so when they get out of school, they can open up their own business and be their own self-person. Because if you go to school to get an education to go work for somebody else, that's all you're going to do. You're going to go get this job, you're going to get settled in that job, and that's where you're going to be at the rest of your life. And as far as promotions and stuff, you may get a promotion, but you may never get to that point where you'll be successful enough to have your own business. So go to school, get smart, and learn how to start your own business, and you can get somewhere.
Wow. Absolutely, to both of those. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our time here together, but we've got a rapid fire question round, 30 seconds or less. 5 years ago, the Obama administration, I can say that, designated this area as a national monument. And in those 5 years, we've seen renovations to the Carver Theater, the beginning of renovations to the A.G. Gaston Motel, the renovation to 16th Street Baptist Church and its places. We've seen some stabilization work for St. Paul. We've seen some work around Freedom Manor. But what I really want to talk about today as the Black Business District, 4th Avenue was just a main street, but it was really a neighborhood, a whole neighborhood of black businesses. You know, they were not calling it the Civil Rights District in 1940, right? What do you want to see specifically in the future for the 4th Avenue and Civil Rights District?
What I would like to see is I would like to see bright lights down through 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, 3rd Avenue. You got a bunch of bright lights on 3rd Avenue already with the Lyric Theater and the Alabama Theater. So, you know, they shining their lights. They got their lights blinking. We need to get some blinking lights on 4th Avenue so that when people ride through here, they can see us. They can know where we came from, because it was a very hard struggle for us to get where we at now. And we need to continue to work with it and to liven it up so that when you go to some of these other states and stuff and you look at their black districts, it's a lot more improved than our 4th Avenue Business District. But we getting there. So let's just continue to work and continue to put our foot forward and continue to support each other.
Thank you.
That's a hard question. That's
And Ms. Poole, I know why it's somewhat
question.
hard, but what do you want to see?
I'd like to see the kind of unity that they had in the 30s and 40s. When they built the, what's the name of the building? The Masonic Temple. The amount of money that was raised to build a structure like that in that date and time is still remarkable to me. But it took unity. It took a neighborhood. It took hard work. Took a lot of things. But I'd like to see Birmingham develop the black neighborhood to be able to compete with some of the other neighborhoods. And we can only do that by pooling our resources and having a community. I was thinking earlier about when I was a little girl coming up 7th Avenue, walking to see the funeral home as it was being built. I think I was about 2 or 3 years old, and we stopped for ice cream. And there were 2 brothers who owned like a drugstore or whatever, but they sold hand-packed ice cream there. And we'd stop, but there were places like that all around, not only on 4th Avenue, but you know, in some of the other areas of Birmingham, because it was a community. And I think we need more communities to be strong.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask the same question, just 2 different ways,
Okay.
and then we'll go to our final question. So, Mr. Grattan, what business advice would you give to a young black entrepreneur trying to locate in the 4th Avenue Business District? And then would you be willing to help mentor them for the folks that are interested?
Well, I'm willing to help mentor anyone that's got their head screwed on right. You know, don't come to me with no foolishness. You know, if you got a plan and you want to be successful, then I'll be more than happy to take time out of my day to help you reach your goal. Because my father said, success is not given, it's earned. So the only way you can earn success is you have to set yourself a goal and you have to prepare to make it to that goal. And once you reach the goal, that's not it. You set another goal. So I would say to any black person, because, you know, the other side, the white people, they help their kids and their young adults and stuff. And I would be one in the black neighborhood that would be willing to help anyone with a plan, and I won't be afraid to tell them that they got to do some more work because what they got is not strong enough. So yes, I'll be willing to do that.
And then too, for those who are thinking about coming to Fourth Avenue District, what business advice would you give them?
Well, I would love to see as many black businesses open up in the Fourth Avenue District as possible, but we got to have some locations for them. Now, once the Masonic Temple get back on track, there'll be a lot of storefronts and stuff there, I know. And we got some other developments that we can start working on. But I think it's a must for any entrepreneur to want to be in this area because it means a whole lot to black people.
Thank you. Ms. Poole, what business advice would you give to a young black entrepreneur?
Prepare. Get prepared. And have a plan. I guess that would be the first thing to do. And I guess that's the best thing to do.
Absolutely.
Just have a strong plan.
Well, I want you all to put your emojis in the chat, hand clap for these, I'm going to just say business royalty, just people royalty. This is fantastic. Y'all give them a hand, Mr. Grattan and Ms. Poole. It is not too often that we have the opportunity to have conversation, truth-telling, generational exchange, and sponging up. So this has been a great pleasure. I want to leave by giving you all the opportunity to have any closing thoughts and a commercial for your business so we can come and patronize both of you all and make some referrals where possible. Ms. Poole?
State that again, please.
Oh yeah, just give a commercial for your business and any closing thoughts that you may have.
We're people oriented, and we just like dealing with people, even during times of sorrow. We have compassion, and that's about all I can say is that we love our public. We want to help our public, and we have compassion.
I would like to say to all my Green Acres customers to continue supporting me and my business, and for those, and I say this quite frequently when customers come in the store and say, I've never been here before. I say, well, you must be a pilgrim then, because anybody that don't know nothing about Green Acres is definitely a pilgrim. It just came to Birmingham. So I just want to just ask for your continued support. And this COVID thing has really caused some problems for all of our businesses, including mine. I had to revert from 2 shifts from a 9 to 10 p.m. to 11 to 6 p.m. And it's because I don't have any workers. So if anybody would like to be a part of my family, just come down and fill out an application. I'll be glad to interview you and give you a job. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is just one of a beginning of a series, Nobody Knows My Name. Next Thursday, tune in. We'll have another panel, and also the Thursday after that on the 17th and the 24th, talking about stakeholders and the Masonic Temple specifically. We think about Nobody Knows My Name in the sense of telling unique and untold stories, but stories nonetheless that are the fabric of who we are as Birmingham, as a city, and as a nation. Tonight we've heard from Ms. Ernestine Poole of Poole Funeral Chapel and Mr. Greg Gratton of Green Acres Cafe, two of the legacy businesses, 80 plus and 60 plus years old respectively, that have anchored the economic vitality, the place vitality, and really the cultural vitality for this district, and thereby, as we see in their civil rights contributions, the world. It's important for us to continue to patronize and develop new legacies, knowing that we have folks before us to show us examples and to do that. We're also grateful to our sponsor, again, the Alabama Humanities Alliance, for their gracious sponsorship for bringing these conversations to a public forum. We're also grateful to PEPS, Prodigy Events and Promotion Services, the gracious space here located at 1612 3rd Avenue North. Again, my name is Elijah Davis. I'm joined by Jay Bryant and Ashley Menora at Urban Impact, where our mission is to impact people, place, and business, starting right here in the historic 4th Avenue District and Civil Rights National Monument District. Y'all have a great night and have a great Black History Month.